Welcome to Hear From Where, a podcast about the journeys that shape us. I'm your host, Chef Andrew Garrett, and each week I'll sit down with incredible individuals who've carved their own paths in health, nutrition, entrepreneurship, sports, and beyond. This is where we dive deep into the stories of determination, resilience, and passion, the moments that brought them here, from where they started. Whether you're looking for inspiration, a spark to start your own journey, or just love hearing amazing stories, then you're in the right place. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's explore what it really takes to follow your dreams. Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of Hear From Where. My name is Chef Andrew Garrett, and I am with Dr. Michael Cardinal, the Barbell Chiro. Michael and I met at West Coast Strength, the gym that I've been going to, and we got to talking and immediately realized that we have a lot of stuff in common. And I also sense that this dude had one heck of a cool story to tell, as well as just a plethora of knowledge that I was going to try to pull out here and see how much of that we can share today and get into it. Michael, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on here and talk to me and some of my listeners.
Yeah, man. Really happy to be here.
Awesome. So you grew up in Idaho, is that correct?
Yep, southeast corner down in Blackfoot.
Fantastic. What was that like for you?
Well, it's a potato town with a lot of Mormons, so there was not a ton to do other than like catch bugs and build tree forts and drink out of the canal water until we found a dead cow one time. And Bobby's like, you probably shouldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, every now and then, those are the good germs, right? That's why
I don't get sick. So
yeah, we don't get sick at all. We used to play in the dirt, rub it in our eyes. So, what was it like for you? I mean, getting past the drinking dead cow water, what was athletics like for you? Like, were you always? So, for those of you that are listening, you can't see Michael. He's actually like what 6'5", 6'6"?
6'5", yeah, 280.
Yeah, 6'5". He's an absolute monster of a human. And so, were you always the big kid, or were you just like, did you hit a growth spurt and go?
So funny enough, I was always like taller than everybody, and I never had a growth spurt. I was 6'5" my sophomore year, like end of sophomore year of high school. I started high school like going in out of middle school. I was like 6'1", 135 pounds, and so I gained 110 pounds in high school, but I only grew a couple inches. So I went from like 135 freshman to 245 senior, and yeah, it was like what's frustrating is my dad's 6'6" and a little bit, and so he grew 9 inches in high school, and so I thought I was gonna be like 6'10", 6'11", but I'm really really grateful that I'm not. And looking back because I can fit in cars, but yeah, I was always big. I was always doing stuff. I'm the only boy. I have 5 older sisters, and my dad's an Olympian. So like growing up, we'd always watch the Olympics. We'd always watch World Championships. We'd always do that kind of stuff. And when I was in third grade, I got the second place presidential fitness award. You have to run the mile, do the shuttle, push ups, sit ups, that kind of stuff. And it really bothered me that I got like the red patch instead of the blue one. And so I told my dad like that summer, like I want to like start running miles every weekend and stuff. And so like, I always played baseball, always played like basketball, football. But in like third grade, I started competing in like summer track and field and like going, like getting ready for like, like Hershey's Nationals, Junior Olympics, that kind of thing. And then, like in fifth grade, I started training and competing in Olympic weightlifting. And so I did track for 17 years, weightlifting for like 11, and then baseball, basketball, kind of those all kind of fell off as track and weightlifting got more and more serious. But yeah, so I was always outside doing stuff, and I was always pretty quick, because I was pretty coordinated, and never the strongest, but I was always good enough to hang, you know?
Right. So, wait, your dad is an Olympian?
Yeah. So my dad was on the 1980 Olympic team for Canada in weightlifting. So, so yeah. So I
Sick.
remember like when I was in fourth grade, sitting down and like telling my dad, like, I want to go to the Olympics. And then we started like throwing discus in the backyard and like started like snatching broomsticks and stuff. So,
So, I this is just in your blood, was lifting and athleticism. So you did all this track and field. You started weightlifting, like Olympic training in fifth grade.
Mhm.
What, uh, where did you start to realize that you had kind of a larger picture in this? Like, because not everybody realizes it that they're really talented. For some folks, like for me playing rugby, I didn't realize that I was better than my peers until I was like going into my senior year of high school, and I realized like how much I had picked up and how much quicker I was at it. What was it like for you, like understanding or seeing that opportunity?
Well, I think the hard thing with weightlifting is like the first women's Olympics was like in 2000, right? They had weightlifting in it. And so like my sister actually was a weightlifter with me and we would train together. And I won like school age junior nationals. I don't know what they'd call it now, but in sixth grade. And so like I look at all those people that I was competing against, and a lot of them actually became like world champion team members and stuff like that. But I was never super strong, but I was always extremely technical. And so I could, like, I never missed a clean in competition. So there's stuff like that. Like the mental strength was huge. And then the confidence and my technical proficiency was huge. And so it's kind of like put it on the bar, I'll take it. And then the way my dad trained us, like it was always very competitive environment. And like I had a weird, so I had a very weird training environment. My dad's Olympian. His coach was Olympian in Mexico City. When we were in like sixth grade, we met John Powell, who was a world record holder in the discus, Olympic medalist, and he had come up from Las Vegas to try and meet my dad, so my dad could help one of his throwers learn how to snatch better. And my sister and I were throwers too, and so my dad's like, "Can you teach my kids how to throw?" And then my sister met Norik Vardanyan, who became a 2012 Olympian, but his dad had 42 world records for the Soviet Union.
Holy
So I
shit.
never had a coach that wasn't like an Olympian until I was in high school. And that was like my basketball coach. And I was like, "Oh, you're not very good at this, are you?" And so it wasn't like, "Oh, I feel like I'm super talented." It was just like the expectation and the training level. And so like we just expected to go to a competition, and it wasn't like I'm competing against this other person. It was like you're competing against the records. And so we always had three rules for competition. Number one, get a mark. Number two, get a PR. And number three, if the opportunity presents itself, win. But it was always like we're going for a lift so you can be in the competition. Like I never bombed out, and we're going for a personal record, whether that is a state record, a national record, or whatever. Like that's all we cared about. But it's very intense.
Yeah, that's like, not many people get the opportunity to be trained by Olympians on a regular basis, and that poor basketball coach going into high school. I mean, yeah, that poor guy never stood a chance. Like, I mean, he's just someone out there trying his darndest, just donating some time to some high school kids. And that's awesome. I love that though, and I love those rules. Like having something like that in place is always going to push you. Like I feel like those kind of rules are the things that push people to really, you know, go for something bigger than themselves, right? Like, I think a lot of folks, especially in training at high levels, get caught in this idea of like, I've got to win this competition, but they forget about the bigger picture of like what the real objective is.
Well, you
Um,
also see like they changed the rules in weightlifting. So now they have the 1 kilo jump. So now as a kid, you had to do a 2.5 kilo jump. And you just see people bomb out like crazy because they open up too high. They open up and take a 1 kilo jump. You're like, yeah, you missed your opener. You jump a kilo, you're far not going to make it. And so people open up super high. Like we used to open up and then you jump like 5 kilos, but like you're at least in the competition. You have three attempts. Like you don't have to open up at 98%. You can
right.
open up at 90%, smoke it, get some confidence, take a jump, take a jump. You know what I mean? Like if your training went well, you should be able to handle the jumps. And I don't like that people chip all their records all the time. They take these small little jumps that it didn't used to be an option. And so I think people thought about it in a better strategic sense than they do now because when you can jump a kilo, it removes a lot of the pressure to actually make it lift.
Right, because a kilo is about 2.2 pounds.
Yeah.
Yes, we're talking. Most of my listeners are American, so the metric
Yeah.
system I will help add in any of those actual numbers. So 1 kilo is 2.2 pounds, and So for those folks that are not familiar with strength competitions, when you talk about jumping, like what's that jump? What is the jump?
So like if you make an attempt and you say you clear your attempt, you then have to declare your next weight. And so in certain competitions like weightlifting, it's a rising bar. And so when you do your first attempt, if there's nobody else, you have a 2 minute clock because you have to follow yourself. And so you can kind of play around with attempt selection to give yourself more time. But like, let's say that you and I are competing and I jump 3 kilos, 6.6 pounds. Now you're up. You can also jump a kilo to make me immediately have to follow myself. So it's more of a chess game. And so you use
Ah.
your strategic jumps to try and put yourself in a position that maybe you get more time to rest, or maybe you make someone who's not ready to go yet have to go right now. So you're trying to make them miss the lift because they're still tired, or like you're watching them warm up and you're like, I want them to go now. I don't want them to finish their warm up. So you'll jump 5 or 6, and so it's a game. And in weightlifting, you have to open up within a 20 kilo, so 44 pounds of your entry total. But now, if you go to something like powerlifting, it's completely different. In powerlifting, every person does their first attempt, and then every person does their second attempt and third attempt. And so, if you or I are in the same flight, and let's say you're squatting 500 pounds and somebody else is squatting 800 pounds, we're all going to go in sequential order and then start over. And so, in powerlifting, you're really just building your total and you're going to try and hit your best squat, best bench, and then maybe pull for the win. Whereas in weightlifting, you get a snatch medal, a clean and jerk medal, and a total medal. And so you're trying to snatch to put yourself in a really good position to clean and jerk for the win, but you're also trying to force other people to not have their best performance. And so it's really a mental game of like, if I put you on the clock, can you handle that pressure? You're trying to see who breaks. And so that was like again, like when we were kids, my sister and I, my dad would make us do like a one lift competition for like all of our allowance. So it's like, okay, you get one lift or one throw or one whatever. And then like because my sister's 2 years older than me, we would have like a handicap. So like let's say whatever the difference between our two personal bests were, we would have to make that up. And so like if my personal best was this much better than hers or hers was better than mine, depending on what it was, um, we would declare our one attempt and then the other person would have to beat it. And if you lost, you'd like lose money or allowance or whatever, have to do chores. So
That is absolutely brutal. But if you talk about it, like raising a bunch of winners, like that's like raising champion quality, like mentalities. It's not something you see in kids growing up today. I don't think that we have
yeah,
the
no.
mental strength that some of us kind of did. I think that it's not as it's a lot easier to be comfortable than it is to be uncomfortable these days.
Mhm.
Yeah, I grew up on a small farm, so I always grew up like having to do chores. You know, it was the first thing I did when I got home was like go take care of this, go take care of that, and then get into homework and then get into everything else.
Yeah.
So you've had all this training, you get into high school. What prompted you to get to like? Did you go from high school lifting all throughout high school and then go into college, or like what was that transition like for you?
So when I was a junior, I kind of like outgrew our basement. So I would jerk and snatch and hit the ceiling. Because like when so CrossFit started like my junior year of high school. It was like the
Okay.
first year of CrossFit. So nobody knew what it was, and there weren't any gyms where I was at. So we were all just training in our basements or garages or whatever. And in Idaho, it snows for 5, 6 months sometimes, so you can't really train in the garage. So my junior year, I kind of focused more on track going into my senior year. And then my senior year at one of our home competitions, it started snowing after warm-ups. And so we had all warmed up to throw and it started snowing. And, in high school, there's like a zillion people in every competition. It's like everybody throws at least once in their high school career, I feel like. And so instead of doing a 3 throw and then finals, they just decided to give everybody 4 throws and do it in like distance seating. And so they went from having like a flight of like 10 people to like just the entire competition, 4 throws at a time. And you take all 4 throws. And so I warmed up and like an hour and a half later, I finally threw and I tore my pec.
Oh,
And so coming out of high school, I wanted to keep training and all that, but I ended up serving a Mormon mission in Brazil. And then I lost 60 pounds in Brazil, got home, I'm 6'5", I was like 190 at that point. Started training again, and then that next summer I was in a boating accident and had two herniated discs, a partially paralyzed leg, and back surgery. And then I did my own rehab from that for about 9 months. And then I walked onto the track team at Utah State, went to D1 Nationals as a walk on and earned a scholarship. But that was a long 2.5, 3 year process there where I really wasn't able to train like I wanted to train or compete.
So I wow. Wow. Dude, like that's nuts. So you tore a pec, kind of
Mhm.
missed a year,
Two
went
years
on
in Brazil.
missed 2 years, went on mission down to Brazil, lost 65 pounds, which for someone that's weighing 245 pounds at a time, like that's a significant amount of weight to lose. So you're coming back,
Oh, my mom
you're
cried when she saw me. I could do my shirt up, my button, and put both my hands in it with it buttoned up. Like, like
wow.
missionaries always have a shirt and tie on.
Oh
So I
yeah.
left on my mission. I couldn't button up my shirt. I got home. I could button it and put both my finger, like my hands down it, because I'd lost so much weight. I'll show you a picture. It's pretty comical.
Oh, that's wild, dude.
Yeah.
And then, but the bigger picture of that to me is that you walked on at a D1 school and made the team.
Yeah. Well, I
Like,
walked on. I made the top 10 list all time and made it to D1 Nationals, and then dislocated two fingers in Texas at first round, and didn't make it to the finals, unfortunately. So
oh
started
man.
raining. Metal shot puts and rain don't go well together, unfortunately. So you slip off it. So
Yeah, that's insane, dude. I mean, that's a really cool story. I mean, and I think that that says a lot about the character and the kind of mentality that you have as a person, as a coach, as a trainer, as someone who trains to be able to work through injury, recognize, okay, this is how I'm going to rehab this and get back to a position to be at the top. Not many people have that kind of mindset. What is it like? I mean, if anybody's listening to the first 15 minutes of this podcast, like they already know why you have that mentality. What
mhm.
is it like to take all that information that you have and like all that experience and then move it into, is that kind of what prompted you to find the career path that you're in now?
So what got me into chiropractic? My original plan was to do a master's in sports nutrition and then do like medical school, sports med. Um, but my second year on the track team, I herniated two discs throwing in Stanford. I just, throwing and twisting, and it's not great. But I slipped. It was raining really bad, and I slipped in the ring, and I just kind of felt like a weird like slap in my back. And then I got to the point that I was like waking up with like numb feet every day, and I was 23 at the time, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna fuse your spine," and I was like, "That doesn't seem like a great idea." And my dad's a radiologist, so he was like, "Yeah, if you can avoid a fusion, you should." And so I called a friend of mine who was kind of into alternative medicine, and he sent me to a chiropractor in Salt Lake because I went to school in Utah at Utah State, and so I went down to Salt Lake, and this guy worked on me, and it was like the most brutal hour of my life. He just did like all like deep tissue work, and like it was horrible. And I remember being like, "Yeah, man, like never coming back to this." And then within a couple of days, I started feeling a little bit better, but like not like amazing, but it was like okay, like a few percent increase, and then like kept getting better, and then like 9 months later, I was back to like squatting 500 pounds, and I was like, "Huh, well, that's a way better option than a fusion." And so that kind of changed my mentality as like, okay, I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to give back to athletes that have injuries because I had a lot of injuries and there was not a lot of rehab going on when I was younger. And I didn't realize that there was like an option that wasn't like being a surgeon or like that kind of thing. Because my dad's a medical doctor. And so when I found chiropractic through my own injury, I was like, oh, I can give people hope back without telling them like, hey, give up everything you love, because that was like what I had been told, like you're done, you're not going to do track anymore, you're not going to lift anymore, like just move on with your life. And I just thought that was like kind of a ridiculous statement for someone so young. And then chiropractic changed my entire outlook on life, kind of gave me my life back. And so that's why I switched into that path and then focusing on like the sports side of things, because there's a lot of people that they're in their 20s or 30s, and they're told like, you're never going to squat again, you're never going to deadlift again, and you're like, why? Like, so everything is tissue tolerance. If you can load it slowly and have good technique and like good understanding of like periodization, you should be able to get to the point that like you can make things happen. I mean, like, look at all these people in the Special Olympics that have had like crazy accidents and they become insane athletes. Like when I had my back surgery, I couldn't feel my leg for like 2 years, and I was like, I don't care what people have told me. Like, I'm doing this because I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to do it. And there was a lot of days where the pain was 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? But it was like it's 10 out of 10, but it went away. It's 10 out of 10 right now, but it's not permanent. And like when you've had back surgery, and after I had back surgery, I tore the stitches out of my back and got meningitis. So I'm like, nothing really compares to that. So as long as it's not that bad, I'm just going to keep working through it and modifying as much as I need to. A lot of
Uh,
things can be fixed with just modification.
Right, and I think that you hit on something really important. There is, so often young people get the "you're not going to do this again." Like, this is not, change your direction. Like, yeah, sorry, like this just doesn't. There's the traditional medical path is always, it always seems to me, and this has been my experience, is like, for me, I have a bunch of knee injury stuff, and so like
Mhm.
every time I injure my knee, oh, you're not going to play rugby again. Sorry, you can't. You're not going to run a marathon. Oh, hey, you're not going to be able to hike. You're not going to be able to go out in the woods. And like telling someone like me that is really just, it's pointless, because I'm going to say fuck you and just do what
Yeah,
I want to do anyways. Uh, but through alternative methods, I've also found that
sure.
you can still achieve anything you want to achieve, and continue growing.
Well, I think
Uh,
you and I both come from sports that have a high amount of injury, right? Like
right.
weightlifting. My dad dislocated both his shoulders, and I dislocated my right shoulder in eighth grade. And then I kept competing. And so, but my dad had done that kind of same thing too. So he was like, yeah, he's like, it's going to hurt. You just gonna have to keep training through it. And so that was just kind of what I was brought up with. Like when you're a weightlifter, we were squatting 4 days a week. So like your knees always hurt. It is what it is, it's overuse. And so you kind of just train with pain, and you just learn to know like, is this annoying or is it actually serious? And if it's serious, we'll modify around it. But if it's annoying, just like warm up and push through it. But yeah, so I think a big part of the mentality, and you grew up as a farmer and then playing rugby and all that stuff. Like if you're a farmer and your knee hurts, like you still got to go up and feed the cows and do all that stuff. Like there's no like, oh well, you can sit today out, son.
Right.
No, it's like it's 4 a.m. Get out there. And so I think that the benefit I had to having like my dad as my coach was there was no negotiating. Like you're gonna train today. And so then when I got to school and college and I was on my own, I'd already had that mindset of like, well, there's no negotiating. Like I'm gonna do this, and I'm just gonna figure it out. And I think a lot of people, they want a diagnosis or they want a label because now that's their excuse to get their get out of jail free card. Like, oh, well, like when I was a sophomore in high school, I herniated a disc in my back 35 years ago, and I just can't. I'm like, yeah, it was 35 years ago, man. Like, you're probably fine. So, and to those people, I'm like, yeah, I've broken my back twice, herniated 4 discs, and had back surgery. So, like, you want to compare notes? So, I think that a lot of people, if they would just quit asking for a diagnosis and just understand, like, hey, like this diagnosis, it tells you a label, but what's that mean? Like, what led to the diagnosis? What is after the diagnosis? Like, that's a moment in time. All this stuff led to it. So we got to fix like your movement patterns and everything. And then all this stuff's what we can do after it. But we all know people like, yep, I got a bum knee, I got a bum shoulder, and that's just who they are for the rest of their life. I think that the benefit of high level sports is anyone that makes it to like the world level, the Olympic level, the national level, they've gotten to the point where they've trained through some pretty tough stuff. And it's just like I hurt my knee last year, and Sarah Robles was training with me a little bit. Just coming in the office, and I was kind of complaining about my knee, and she was like, "Oh, that's cute." She's like, "I made 3 Olympic teams. You don't think my knees hurt?" And I was like, "Point taken." You know what I mean? And so I just think people idolize these athletes or these super high accomplishers, and they listen to all their books, but they don't listen to the message of the book. Like you mentioned David Goggins before we got on. David Goggins is going to run no matter what. Like people make fun of him, like who's going to carry the boats and all that. But what they don't see is the psychopathic mentality of I don't care what label you put on me, I'm not going to stop. And that's just how it has to be if you want to reach a certain level in sports.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that gets missed a lot. I've been fortunate enough to work with professional athletes and a couple different methods. I'm friends with a couple guys that I grew up with that made it to Major League Baseball level and made it to the show, and like being around those people and seeing their path versus what, anybody can choose their path, right? Like I think personally, I think that anybody can make it to the elite level of athleticism if, like you said, they get out of their own way. If they stop making excuses, if they actually just dedicate themselves to the craft that they want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
If you push and you make that your sole objective, if you sacrifice all the external things, all the stuff that just kind of distracts you from your ultimate goal, then you can do that too.
Sure. Or you can
But
become
it
a
really,
really good coach.
yeah, yeah,
You see some
exactly.
of the best coaches are the people that were never naturally gifted, but they did what you said, right? They pushed themselves so insanely hard that they understood all the intricacies that the naturally gifted person didn't. And so when it came down to the performance side of things, if the as the naturally gifted person ages out, the person that understands the minutia really shines through. And those are the people that make such amazing coaches because if they take the naturally gifted person and they turn them into the student of the sport, man, it's like then you get something crazy, like Kobe Bryant.
Uh,
You know,
yeah, yep, exactly. That's your Kobe Bryant. That's your Mike Trouts. It's your Shohei Otanes. That's your Todd Cleavers, your Dan Carters. These are the guys that dedicate themselves beyond it. For me personally, like especially playing adult level, Division 1, Division 2 rugby, seeing some of these American kids that have absolute like physical ability beyond anybody I've ever seen, but
mm-hmm.
are completely uncoachable. Oh man, there's nothing that drives me more mad than like, dude, do you realize like what you're born with? Like
Yeah.
you're born with this natural athletic ability. All you have to do is shut your fucking mouth and listen to someone, and you can be so much bigger than you are. And dang, it drives me nuts.
Well, it's hard. It's hard when you're the giant fish in the tiny pond, and someone tells you, like, if you dialed this back, you could actually be so much better. You go, do you not see how amazing I already am? You know what I mean? That was like the most humbling thing for me in throwing, like in college. Oh my gosh. Like I saw people benching 600 pounds. I saw people power cleaning like in the mid 400s. And I'm like, I've trained my entire life and like I can't lift what you guys are lifting. You're just mutants, just horses. But then I would outthrow them. And it was like, I had the technical side of the competition. Like I had one guy on my team. He beat me every single practice. I never lost a competition with him. It's like I'm a game day like let's go. But then like unfortunately, I threw at the same time as Ryan Krauser and Joe Kovacs, who are the number one in
Oh
two
Jesus,
all time. And
yeah.
you watch them, and they have all of it. They have the mental. They have everything. And you're just like you see that, and you're like yeah, there's a level to this that like man, no matter what I did, I'll never get that. But yeah, you talk, but look at Krauser, like his entire family is like Olympians too. His uncle, his two uncles, his sister, his cousin. I mean, or his cousin and her brother, like they're all Olympians, and so they grew up in that same way. They grew up with like having super high level coaches, and I think that when someone is a naturally gifted athlete as a youth athlete and they don't have a good coach, that's the issue because it's like
Hmm.
if they have a good coach from the beginning, that coach doesn't look at just the talent. They look at like, okay, let's get the fundamentals. But if you find someone that's just super crazy out of the box good, and the coach is like, just go out there and razzle dazzle, just do what you want to do, that's the person that becomes uncoachable. I know we're getting super like
I like
random and
that.
off topic into sports here. I should have warned you if
Right,
we
I know.
start talking about like weightlifting and track. I'm just gonna not shut up. So
Yeah, no. Well, see, that's what I really love about this podcast today. And at the end of the day, this is really more for me and having conversations with people that I find really interesting or have a cool story to tell. I think that getting into what you do today, like having all the background that we have now on your mentality, your work ethic, your experience with injury, your experience being around the highest level of athletes possible, to move into a position where, like you said, like returning other athletes to hope, as returning that hope to other athletes, that's huge. And so you and I spoke earlier, like you're specifically really good at biomechanical, and like understanding how to modify the rules of traditional lifting experience to get people back to performance as well as exceed their own expectations. Like, what was it like for you to figure out that the biomechanical side of things is really where you wanted to live?
Um, it was like actually a complete accident. So when I first started my own office, I just started my own office. I didn't like the model that my first boss was using. He's more traditional, and he's a great guy. He was doing a great job, but just wasn't my thing. And so my first office was inside a CrossFit gym, and the CrossFit gym was great. But like you see a lot of people coming in that have a ton of different movement backgrounds, and so you'd watch everybody come in with different injuries, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. And so you start paying attention to them during class and seeing like, oh, that guy is kind of like a hitch here or there. And so you start looking at that and kind of seeing what was going on. And then I was briefly a team chiropractor for a powerlifting team in Washington. And this was really interesting because a lot of the people were on a very similar program, but it was much more movement based controlled because it's powerlifting. You're not getting the variation of kipping and things like that. And so I started seeing a bunch of people coming in with the same injuries. And then I was looking at like who the top people in the gym were and how well they performed on the program, and then who the injured people in the gym were and how they performed on the program. And so then I asked the guy that was like writing the program, like, can I take this bottom group of people and start modifying their workouts just based off of kind of what I'm seeing? And all of them set big time PRs. Some of them set some state records, and like none of them had pain. And it became this thing of like, when I was a kid, I had one on one coaching and I had a unique plan for me versus my sister. And one thing my dad always told us is your best thing you can do as a training partner is develop a coach's eye. Because my dad would ask us, like, what did you see? Or what did you feel? Like, even on your own, like, what did you feel was wrong? So you need to understand how things feel, how things look, and become a student of the sport and watch as much video and stuff as you can. And so when I watch people move, I look at them and I go like, oh, you have very interesting limb lengths, or like you have this breakdown point that like if we modified your grip width, if we changed your knee angle, or if we changed your like heels versus no heels on your squat shoes, like how's that going to change your position? And so I was never afraid to experiment with different technical components in my own lifting. And so when I started doing that with other people, I started really quickly noticing like, oh wow, so there's this guideline of movement that everyone thinks is correct, but that's like saying everyone has to be right-handed. You know, there's some people will never, it just won't ever feel right. And so if you let them kind of explore ranges in a controlled environment, and then you let them lift a little bit and you don't say anything, you just see how they move, and then you start cueing one by one based off of different powerlifting techniques or weightlifting techniques, you will find some people drive much better through their quads, some people drive better with a rounded upper back, and some people that's a position that they're more stable in. So if you tell them like, you know, your knee lines up with your elbow, your arms are straight down, your back is arched or neutral, and then when they go to lift, their hips come up and their back rounds, well, that's a change. What we don't want is change in position that causes the shear force, which leads to some micro trauma. But if we can put them in a position that their body already wants to be in, and then figure out, okay, so if this is the back angle you want, how do we modify your shin angle? Now, boom, that's great. And for a long time, like you'd see, like people always going, oh, well, you have to drag the bar up your shin when you deadlift, like your shins need to bleed. You look at the best deadlifters in the world, especially conventional, most of them don't have bloody shins. And that's changed, right? And so a lot of weightlifting, and this comes from understanding the history of sports. A lot of the studies done in like the 70s and 80s were done on multi-ply or single ply powerlifters. So they were wearing squat suits, they were wearing deadlifting suits, they were wearing knee wraps. And so if you're in knee wraps in a squat suit, you're going to have a sit in a squat. You're going to lean back into the suit because the elasticity will shove you forward. But then you
Mhm.
look at weightlifters, they're super upright torso. Their knees are a mile in front of their toes. Their hips are super open. And you go, okay, well, who's the better squatter? Right? Like some
Right.
weightlifters, I mean, I saw Ivan Ivanov in the Unbelievable Bulgarians video from Iron Mind, front squat, quadruple body weight for two singles, quadruple, four times body weight. So
Jesus.
how do you tell me that he's not a better squatter? And that was raw, ass to grass, than some powerlifter, right? And so when I started coaching, I took principles from weightlifting training and principles from bodybuilding training and principles from powerlifting training, and I never had a bias into which one to use. It's just whichever one you need. And so that same thing, I started correlating with patients. And so I had a lot of patients that would come to me, and it's like, well, we're going to do strength first rehab because I'd rather make your body like a diesel truck than like a little Camry. And then as we start training them, they go, oh, wow, all this other stuff's easier. I'm like, exactly. And so you understand how to move your body, you build better resilience. But so many people have just been told this is how you have to move, and they don't feel correct in that movement. So they shy away from it. Whether it's doing stuff at home, I don't want to help you move the couch, it scares me, or doing stuff in the gym, like they get embarrassed and they just always go to a machine instead. But there's also a problem with machines. A lot of people get hurt in machines because now you're getting forced, like Smith machine. Great machine if you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, it's forcing you into its bar path.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just I see how people move, and I think, I mean, I've been lifting for 26 and a half years. It's like you just see something and your brain just goes, that's not right. And it's hard to explain why, but it's like I've watched hundreds and hundreds of thousands of lifts. I've done hundreds of thousands of lifts. Like I still go back and there's a great video of Ruslan Albagov, who is a university world champion, where he's snatching and clean and jerking. So he's snatching 462 and he's clean and jerking like 540 from the side. It's a Russian video, and they have all of the measurements on how it moves from a side angle in slow motion with trackers, and you can see exactly the bar path. And then you go and you watch someone else, and they're not built the same, and the bar path's different, and you go, oh, okay. And so a lot of times what has helped my athletes is understanding how they look and then having references for them, like, hey, okay, you're built like this guy, go watch them, that's how we're going to model your lift. And I kind of the same thing as like the athlete that doesn't have the coach when they're young. A lot of athletes when they're older haven't been given permission to modify.
Yeah.
And so like understand the rules and then break them in accordance to your needs. But you have to understand them first. And so, like, if you look at the Soviet training system, which I think is the best training system for developing young athletes, everybody started with a no contact snatch. So you have to learn how to pull the bar straight. So no contact snatch, no muscle, like you're doing muscle snatches, no feet, no hook grip, and you learn how to jerk with both feet. So you can jerk left foot or right foot forward. As you get stronger, you introduce a bar sweep. So the bar kind of brushes your leg. So now you're getting closer, but you're not bouncing the bar. And then as you get stronger, you're allowed to then start like really hitting the bar because you understand how to change vectors. So if I'm pulling it into myself and I bounce it and it goes forward, I'm gonna, to have to chase the bar off the platform, overcorrect, injure my shoulder. But if you understand how to bring that bar in and contact to where now it's going vertical, when the bar goes vertical at the top, it'll whip, and that gives you time to get under the bar. But
Huh.
people will cut their pull, and you see them cut their pull, and they dive under the bar, and the bar's forward, and their elbow buckles, and they hurt their shoulder. It's like, yeah, like, well, you need to not contact the bar in training. You need to learn how to pull straight, and then when you do contact the bar, you have to understand how to bring it into you and then transfer it vertically. But if you don't finish your pull, there's no elastic loading in the bar. When you finish your pull and the bar whips, it feels like you have eternity to get under it. But if you don't finish your pull, you're racing the bar to the ground, and gravity will win. So that's why what like John Powell, Olympic medalist, world record holder, he'd always just say, "Make it look easy." And how you make it look easy is understanding the way your body moves, the way the bar moves, and then lining those two things together. I don't know if that answered your question. I get excited about things, so
No, that absolutely answers my question.
but yeah, it's
Um,
like, man, when I was a kid, my dad had a like 2 milk crate boxes of all the strength and health magazines from the 70s, and I read every single one of them. And they all had photo sequence magazines. Look at this. Actually, this is kind of cool. So this is at work on my desk. So you can see this. It's a flip book
Oh,
of a clean and jerk
yeah.
and a snatch. And so before YouTube, we would buy these flip books, and you could see every frame of where the bar was and where
That's
the time
wild.
was. So like that was like my obsession when I was a kid, because I was never strong. I out clean and jerked my best front squat. You know what I mean? Like I was never strong, but I was like, if I can hold the right position, I'll make the lift. So like for me, my cue off the floor was always like just deadlift, pray to God, just like hold position. From the ground to the knee, I did not have good biomechanics. I have short arms, I have super long legs. Um, and so my hips would want to come up. I'd want to be on my toes. But because of my mechanics, I had a crazy second pull. And so for me, it was like hold, 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 like pray to God. It was the slowest first pull of your life. And then the second pull, because I have short arms, I mean, like by the time I'm extended, I'm already at my belly button. That's how high you have to pull the bar to clean it.
Huh.
Like when you watch my clean, the bar never hits me. I always catch it and catch the bounce every time. It's just second nature. Now my sister is built differently than me. She would rip it off of the floor, but then it would kind of catch her on the way down. And so for me, it was like in my mind, everything was a hang power clean. Didn't matter. And I just caught the bar lower as the weight got heavier. Because you
Huh.
meet the bar where you pull it.
Right.
And you see a lot of people, they pull too high or they pull too low. And so that's the problem is like, if you watch Ilian in like 2013 World Championships, he warms up doing clean, power cleans up to like 460. And then he comes out and clean and jerks. Every single lift from like 70 kilos until the world record are all the same. The timing is all the same. It's just you catch the bar lower, but you don't disrupt the timing. Anyway.
That's awesome. I had the opposite problem growing up, as I was the like country strong kid,
Oh,
and I didn't.
farmers are the worst. Like I hate
I
playing basketball with you guys. It's just like a
Yeah,
post in the ground.
I never had to like actually have any kind of like real like form. I could just kind of like move people, and it wasn't until I got older that I had some really good coaches who were like, "Yeah, we're gonna fix that, and we're gonna make you even better."
Yeah,
And as soon as we started like fixing the form and like really like dialing in specifics, then I was able to take that strength and just go
yeah,
even just harder.
yeah.
Uh,
That's the one hard thing I do find though is like the design. You talked about like kids not having like the discipline. One thing I find is hard for me with people sometimes is desire levels.
mm.
I actually had to quit coaching because I was getting like just frustrated with people being okay with like above average. And I was like, yeah, like you want to deadlift 700 pounds, but you're doing RDLs that are lighter than this girl that weighs 125 pounds. Like, what do you like? These things don't correlate. And so when I was training, like it was always like psychopathic discipline to the goal. We didn't miss a workout. We didn't, I weighed myself like 4 times a day. I didn't go to bed till I weighed a certain amount, like every single day. And and so sometimes with patients, I have to realize that like they just want to pick up a bag of groceries. And in my mind, I'm like, so you want a power lifter, like you want to be a weightlifter, like you want to make the games, or like, and so I sometimes feel like I have to tone things down because I want everybody to be like, yeah, I want to deadlift 400 pounds or 500 pounds or whatever it is. Um, and they're like, "Man, I'm 56. Like, I like playing pickleball." And I'm like, "But you imagine how much you could crush the ball if you were like doing this much weight? Like, you know what I mean?" So I'm like, it would make you better in all aspects of your life. And people are like, "Yeah, I just don't want my back to hurt." And I'm like, "Well, it doesn't hurt anymore, but like, there's more. There's so much more." And
Right.
that's the hard thing for me. It's like I sit in my office, and across from me is the 1979 Tokyo World Championship poster going into the 1980 Olympics, signed by all the athletes. My dad is at, and the picture on the poster is Alexiev doing the first 500 clean, and that's what I look at every day, and I'm just like why don't you want that? But no, I think, and that sometimes does make it a little tricky with training. Is if you can get people to have that buy-in that moving better and getting the maximum amount of strength out of your body You don't have to be a world champion, but like the maximum amount that you have is only going to benefit you mentally. It's going to benefit your joints, your tendons, your bones. Like, but a lot of people, they um, they don't have that passion. But on the flip side, you see a lot of athletes that can't make it outside of sports, right? It's funny how passions don't transfer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. Actually, that's a really interesting like thought. As I hadn't really thought about that in a context of such like I went from the army and immediately like I tried to do this office job and it was the worst possible thing ever until I found something that was more like high speed and like
Mhm.
intense.
Yep.
And I could see the same thing for athletes being, this really you're dedicated for your entire life. You've given up so much for your craft to try to like transition to, just being the absolute best like grocery shopper. Like that's not going to be something that happens.
Yeah, but
Uh,
people think it will. People are like, "Oh, you're like a super high level athlete. You're going to be great at everything else." And you're like, "Have you ever heard the phrase every athlete dies two deaths, and the first is the worst?"
no, that I have not heard that
I
before.
think Alexiev said it. My dad told me, but when I was a kid, but like when your athletic career is over, a lot of athletes go through a crazy depression and lose themselves.
Yeah.
And it's it's funny not to try and tie this back in, but I see that a lot with my patients. Whatever they identify themselves as, now they have this pain that takes it away. They're like, this thing's gone, and you're like, well, we can give it back to you. But then it's like meeting them at where they want to be. But yeah, that every athlete dies two deaths, and the first is the worst. It's like you have to you have to have a game plan. And a lot of people, that is their only game plan, and it doesn't work out, and then they don't know what to do. And with patients, they're living their life. There is no game plan. They don't expect to have pain, and then boom, something happens. And oh, I got told I need shoulder surgery. I got told I need back surgery. I can't play with my kids. Blah 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 blah. And it's like you just have to have an athlete mentality. Like you look at the world's strongest man guys, they tear stuff off all the time, and then like a year later, they're competing again. And you're like, I saw a dude blow off both his patella doing a 400-pound log press. It's actually the worst DM I've ever gotten in my life. One of my buddies sent me this DM like, "Watch this." And he did a log clean and press, and both his knees exploded essentially, and the log crushed him into the floor. And I was like,
Oh.
"Dude, didn't break a rib. Pretty impressive." But
Hmm.
a year later, he was doing 1,000-pound yoke carries. And after that, any of my patients are like, "I don't think I'm ever going to be able to play pickleball again." I'm like, "Listen, only if you tell yourself you can't." Because if you're willing to do the work, you can do some pretty wild stuff. So that
Yeah, I
was the
think
worst DM I've ever gotten. He sent me a video with like no explanation what happened. So I opened it up and I was like, oh.
that makes absolute sense, and I think that I could really relate to the dying to deaths. Is like even for me, like there's a big joke within the Portland Pigs Rugby Club for
You
the
guys are
number of
called the
time.
Portland Pigs.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that.
as the number of times that I retired from rugby is immeasurable.
Oh,
Is
yeah. No, dude, I've
it's
died
like
like
oh
20 deaths. Like
yeah, yeah,
when track was over, when weightlifting was over, I tried to come back in weightlifting and I couldn't because of my shoulder surgery, powerlifting, and now like I'm playing beer league hockey, and I've recruited like four guys to the team because I'm like I want to win the cup,
yeah,
and it's like men's beer league hockey, and I'm like I'm on the ice like 6 hours a week right now. My knees feel torched. Like
yeah.
I need to lose like 20 pounds, but it's like it's just yeah that level of intensity. It doesn't. But then it's funny because like you ask me about marketing plans, and I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like I'll figure out how to write a world record deadlift program, but like don't ask me about SEO and keywords because like my brain just doesn't care.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way, and it's
Yeah.
like it's hard to get there, and it's all about like finding people that really like complement your skill
Mhm.
set and being able to push that. When you go when you're working with clients, and I mean, I love that we touch base on like realizing that the everyday person who wants to just pick up their kid or
Yeah.
like be able to play with their grandkids or go for a walk without pain is I think that's I think that what you're doing in the sense that you can work with both people who want to be an absolute menace to the world and fitness
Mhm.
to also, John who just wants to have a pain-free weekend with his grandkids. Like, I think that that's a pretty cool thing for what you're able to do. How do you put those two things together? Like, we kind of touched on it a minute ago, but like, for the everyday person, like, what is your plan for them?
Well, so like this is gonna come across as like kind of snooty, I guess, and I'm gonna try and
It
say
should.
it in the nicest way possible. But if you're working with someone that's deadlifting 900 pounds, squatting 800 pounds, benching 600 pounds, whatever, and they have a pretty serious issue, um, so it's called them, Joe. So if Joe's coming in and his rehab requirements are going to be extremely intense, and then let's say Jack comes in and he just wants to play with his kids, Jack's rehab is going to look like Joe's warm up, essentially, right? Like so it's actually easier once you've worked with such high level people to work with the everyday person because you understand the pyramid of progression, right? So to get somebody from like, man, I can't move, I don't think I'm ever gonna be able to pick up a barbell, back to a 700-pound deadlift, like you have, let's say, 10 steps. But to get Jack from my back hurts, I just want to play with my kid, it's like 3 steps. And so you just do the first 3 steps really well. And then you teach him the principles of the other seven, but you don't really have to implement them unless he wants to. And so, yeah, it's just building the base is the same. It's just how much further beyond the base do you want to go? And
Right.
having done it with high level people, it also gives you the confidence to be like this may not make sense to you right now, but like give it a shot because I've seen this work at such a crazy level that like it would blow your mind. You know what I mean? So it really gives you the confidence to be like, this may not seem like it's much, but trust me, this will get you where you want to be. And then almost inevitably that is like, they're like, yeah, like that little tiny change made this massive difference. And I thought it was going to be way more complicated. You're like, no, it's simple. It's just implementation.
Right. And I think that's what the majority of us do. I mean, even at the high level athletes, is like we overthink these things. Is like it's all so we just hiked Machu Picchu. We hiked down to Machu Picchu, but before that we hiked up to Salcatene Pass, and everybody knows that I have bad knees, like, and it the whole way people are like, "Oh, are your knees okay? Are your knees okay?" And it's like, they're going to be fine because everything is between my ears.
Hmm.
The noise of pain. It's like you kind of touched on earlier. Is like, yeah, 10 out of 10 pain, but it's going to go away. Right? I know it's not going to last. Like, for me, I have to be at like a 15 out of 10 to really say, oh, hey, so I got to slow down here. I the pain scale doesn't exist in my brain because it's between the 2 ears. Um, I don't know where I was going with that. Where was I going with that?
Well, physical pain, mental pain, and emotional pain,
Yeah,
it's all a learned skill. Like dealing with
right.
pain is a learned skill.
I like that.
Yeah.
Dealing with pain is a learned skill. I will definitely. I'm going to take that. The puzzle of the person in front of you, like, how I you've kind of you've definitely touched on how you've been able to identify all these different things. What is it that you think the average person needs to do or could do better in their everyday life? Like, what do you think that the average person is missing?
That's a really general question. Sleep 8 hours, drink water, eat better. I think obviously that's great, but I think the average person. So if you look at like old people in the store, they're like hunched over, right?
Right.
So you had mentioned before the podcast you want to talk about like posture, and I dislike the idea of posture because like posture is fluid. It's like if I sat with a perfect posture all day, I'd probably get stiff. If I sat slouched all day, I'd get stiff. If I sat extended all day, I'd get stiff. So what we need is movement. And most people, they probably get up late and they're rushed, and then they get to work, and then they may or may not get up much during work. And then they get home and they're mentally exhausted, and they probably don't want to go for a gym session or a walk or whatever. And so they kind of just like, they find a position on the couch, and so they go from like static posture to static posture to static posture. And so most people, honestly, if they would just incorporate like for every hour that you're stationary, try and move for 10 to 15 minutes, like throughout the workday, we'll go to the bathroom, walk around, just a movement recess, right? Get up, move, stretch, kind of get back to work. That would help a ton of people. And then just understanding that like our body will adapt to the positions that we always put it into. And so like if I'm always looking down, if I'm always slouching, if I'm always leaning forward, eventually our body's like, is that the position that you want to just like maintain? Because we can do that. And so we've all seen, like, my stepdad is a lawyer. He's just always reading. He loves reading. He had a library in his house. I asked him one time to look at the ceiling, and he like leaned back and looked up with his eyes because he had been in this position for so many years of just being always forward, always flexed forward. And I'll have patients come in and they're like, I want a miracle cure. I'm like, dude, you're 70. You've been in this horrible posture for 40 years. Like Wolf's Law, the body adapts to the you know forces we put upon it. Like you're kind of at the end of the road when it comes to like fixing this. Like we can try and slow it down. We can try and give you some pain relief, but like you're not getting an overhead squat anymore, dude. Like there's a limitation to matter. And so what most people do is they wait until it's too late to try and fix their problems. And so if they would just have movement breaks, work out 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, hit a push day, hit a pull day, hit a full body day, hit a movement day. Like, hit a leg day, a press day, a back day, and then a day where you just grab a ruck and just go for a walk. Like that would make so many people's lives better, and it wouldn't be that hard. People think, I have to go to the gym. I'm going to have to diet. I'm going to have to take supplements. I'm going to have to do these 2.5 hour workouts every day. I just don't have time. And it's like, dude, 30 minutes with a kettlebell, you could just buy a 40-pound kettlebell or 30-pound kettlebell, put it in your living room, do some squats, do some like push-ups, do some kettlebell swings, and like your life will tremendously improve. Now, if you want to take it beyond that, like if you want to like maximize your performance, preventative care. People come to see me once they're in pain. I get DMs all the time like, "Oh, I love all your stretches. I'm just going to keep using those." And you're like, "Cool. So you're using the stretches to solve a problem. What's the problem?" Right? Like, well, I just get this tightness or this or that. I'm like, okay, well, like, let's actually like take care of that instead of just masking it with like the occasional stretch or whatnot. Like, let's figure out what's going on. Let's build a plan to get it stronger so it isn't an issue. So you don't have to constantly be trying to, put a pain patch on or stretch or whatever. And so, yeah, the problem with being a chiropractor or a physical therapist, they probably have the same issues. We're always the end of the line. Oh, I had all this pain. I went and got an injection. I got surgery. It failed, blah, 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 blah. And now they want the finger of God to come down and cure all their problems. And it's like, man, if you had done this proactively before you're in pain, like I started feeling a little stiff. I'm just going to once in a while do this thing. It would have been huge. It's like the person that's, morbidly obese wasn't born that way. They became that way. But then it's really really hard to get away from that. And it's the same thing with pain and movement pattern issues. Like if you once you're in pain, like you've passed a lot of turn back signs, and now it's like we have a lot of switches we got to flip off, and we have to regress you back past all those signs. You know, you're already past the danger zone, and people, because of the nature of how we work and being in the office all day and all these things, we don't stop unless it forces us to stop. And once it's forced you to stop, yeah, it's very expensive in a long process. It's I hope I finished my thought. I don't remember.
Yeah, no, you absolutely do. You always finish your thought. You're a very good conversationalist, and I really appreciate like the way that you work all the way through your thoughts. A lot of times, it's a lot of work on my end to like try to pull more and more information out of people.
Well, it's the
Um,
ADHD hyper focusing on one thing, right? It's like, yeah,
yeah, exactly. It's like if you get focused in on like that one thing, I struggle with it all the time. Christina, my wife, gives me a hard time because I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm going to do this week, and as soon as I start doing something, all of a sudden something else is shinier, and I'm going to go chase that.
sure.
Uh,
There was
it's like
one
even
thing I
with my
wanted
old,
to add though when we were talking about freak athletes that have like all the genetic potential plus good coaching, and
yeah,
parentheses really good Russian steroids. If any of your listeners are weightlifters and they want to just feel totally inadequate, Nadezhda Yuvashina, it's hard to spell, but just put it in Nadezhda and then start trying to spell Uvastina. It's like Euvstin or something like that. She did a front squat and jerk with 180 kilos, 396 pounds, and she weighed 75 kilos, 165 pounds. This Russian chick. This was back in like 2014 when like Lydia Valentine and all those guys, all those ladies were competing. But like she walks it out, just 396 as a 165-pound girl, front squat, squats it. And you're like, oh, that was impressive because the title's in Russian. And then just smokes the jerk, like zero wobble. And you watch that and you're like, yeah, there's definitely like just if you take someone from the time they're 8 years old and then they're a professional athlete, like there's just this insurmountable difference in just skill set, you know. But I'll
That's
send you that. I'll
nuts.
send that to you. I'll
Yeah,
find
please do because I
like, I
will. I'm
wanted
going
to
to put
I
a
wanted to
lot.
bring that up. I didn't want to have like a weird pause, but since we're moving on, I was like, no, like you, there's certain lifters where you're just like you have to see them do stuff, and you're like, what? Like it just doesn't. It's unfathomable. Like my best clean and jerk was 420, and I'm like this girl is like pretty close. I was like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. So
That's wild.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll for everybody listening is I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put some of these links and some of these athletes down in the show notes so you could go and check it out yourself because I think that
Oh, if you want a
I
list of freak, have you seen Klokov's 495 push press?
no.
Oh yeah. So getting ready for the London Olympics, Klokov faked a knee injury at the Olympics because they were like, "Oh, we're gonna test you guys this time." That's where like the 90 people, like all the medalists, got popped retroactively. But going into that Olympics, he was like the best shape of his life, and like his dad had been in like Olympian, and he was Olympic silver medalist. So he's like, "We got to win we got to win the gold here." And there's a video of him walking out 495 and then he push presses it like 95 pounds. Like he gets a whip on the bar and just like it doesn't make sense. And I'll send you the Russell and Albagov technical analysis one too. But and then I think one of the funniest videos or craziest videos, Misha Koklayev, he actually signed my weightlifting shoes, one of my prized possessions, did a seminar in California in like 2010, did a no hand back squat with 660 and a behind the head jerk with 600 pounds in a polo, in like basketball shorts and a polo. And I was like, what a baller.
A no hand
Yeah, yeah.
back
Yeah,
squat.
back with
So
660.
so
Hands
no.
down by his hips. Because his traps are so big. He's high bar squatting, so he just rested on his traps.
Oh
That's
my
what always bothered
god.
me. And people are like, your hand tension matters so much on your back squat. I'm like, if you're high bar squatting, you should be able to take your hands off the bar. Like I've done a like 240 no hand squat just for fun. But like if you're low bar squatting, yeah, for sure your hand pressure matters because the bar will roll down your back. But yeah, a lot of people don't know how to high bar, and it makes me laugh. So
Yeah, I think I've done two 225 maybe without hands on a high bar because
yeah,
I like a high bar squat like that's just like the way
yeah,
it feels more comfortable to me. Like I'm a 5'10" guy, and I think that about 5 feet of that is my arms,
yeah.
and the rest is all is I got these little tiny legs,
So you love
but I got these
deadlifting.
really long. Oh, I love
Hate
deadlifting
bench
and
press.
oh yeah, well bench press is a bitch for me
Yeah,
because
you got long arms.
I've got these big dumb monkey arms.
You need to
I've
arch more
benched.
and widen your grip.
Well, that's what I've been watching videos, and I'm starting to think that that's my path to 315.
What do you bench now?
Is I think maybe 265.
Oh, so you know what? Honestly,
So
what helps a lot of people with long arms. So a lot of people when they do bench, they don't do enough drop set volume. And so when I built my best bench, and all my athletes, I had them do this too. I would work up to like my top work sets, whatever for the day. So let's say you did 265, like well, that's your best. So let's say you did like 240 for like 4x4 or something. Then you'd go to like 60% of your 4 rep for the day, and you do 2 sets of burnout. And once you can do 20 reps each set, you go up in weight. And so a lot of people don't realize that like bench press is not a great chest exercise. It's really good front delt, low lateral chest, but not like it's not like bench press doesn't make big bodybuilder chests, but
right.
it's a compound lift. And so a lot of people get shoulder pain and tendonitis and elbow tendonitis from benching because they do like 4x4 and move on. And it's like no, it's a specific skill movement. And so we need to get a lot of blood flow in there to kind of help that tissue get stronger and recover. And so when you start dropping down and doing that super low that low intensity volume, it helps a lot of people build specific tissue for that lift, but it helps them a ton with recovery. And so when I
Huh.
started doing that was after I had my shoulder surgery, because I just had to get blood flow into my shoulder, and my bench just exploded. And so like when I benched 460, I did 315 for 20, and I felt like I probably within another month or two probably could have got to 500, but I was getting scared of tearing off my pec, because
Yeah.
obviously I've had a pec tear, so it's like you start feeling that little twingy. But yeah, everybody I know that starts doing like specific barbell back down volume really makes a big difference. And then when you have long arms, what would be interesting to do would take like a medium or a close grip bench press with a two board, because with your arm length, so I had the same position. If a close grip two board, if you watch from the side, my stroke length is the same as my competition grip.
Huh.
And so I found that the two board, because of the reduced range of motion, really helped with my sticking point, but also was easier on my shoulders. And so I would do one bench day that was like a competition specific bench day, and then one bench day that was a variation bench day, Swiss bar, two board, whatever. And I got to the point that whatever I could hit on the two board, within a week or two, I could hit competition paused. And so I benched
Wow.
460 the first time off a two board, and it felt like insane because you have that, like you're right in that power stroke. And so for you, I would say um, looking at more of like an undulating periodization where you have like specific built out blocks. You're like, okay, I'm doing volume here, I'm doing intensity here, I'm doing my back down, and like structuring it so that you bring up your total base capacity and then peaking from that. You for sure 315 shouldn't be a problem. I mean, you're 5'10, like you should be able to pull through 315. Oh, sorry, press 315.
Yeah. All right. All right. Drop steps volume. I'm into it. And when you say like two board, what's two board? What do you mean?
Oh, so when you look at multiply powerlifting, they wear those really tight shirts, and so they used to
Uh-huh.
use two by fours to break the shirt in. So you'd start with like a bunch of two by fours stacked up because the shirt's so stiff, and so you'd start breaking the shirt in and taking away boards as you got the shirt to stretch more. And so that became really useful to like if you look at someone that has like a sticking point midway off the chest, it's like, okay, could it be like you have weak chest, you have weak triceps? Like there's definitely a weak point, but it's also like some people just have like biomechanics where it's like that's a hard point to get through. So you can
Right.
set up a board height where it stops you right there or just below it. And so then you always have to work through that spot from the stop. And so then you can start playing with the
Oh.
board heights. So if you have a really hard time finishing at the top, like really tricep issue, you can just do the top quarter and just hit a ton of volume on that. Or you can go to lower, and so you can start playing around with how deep of a stroke you're getting. And like if you have AC joint pain, you could put a board on, press just like you're pressing with no pain because now you're not getting that forward shoulder rotation at the bottom.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Well, I've got separated AC joints. Thanks,
I don't
rugby.
even have one. They cut this one out.
Did they
Yeah,
really?
my right AC joint's gone. I don't have it. They left the ligament.
Brutal.
So when I
Yeah, they
front squat,
wouldn't.
that's why I couldn't get back into weightlifting. If I front squat 400 pounds, my arm falls asleep. So I could clean it, but I couldn't jerk because my arm would go numb.
Right.
Apparently, that's a necessary skill to be able to be a weightlifter. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that checks out. Like, I can do weighted dips. I can do like 95 pounds
hmm
at 10, just
hmm
like ripping out weighted dips. Uh, but again, like I feel like my triceps. Yeah, I blame it on push-ups. Is what it is. Like lots of army push-ups.
well, with a
Um,
weighted dip, the problem is people think the dip's a great tricep exercise, but it's really like a front delt, tricep, and chest, right? You see a lot of people tear pecs on
oh,
dips because so the fully stretched position of the pec is when the arm is like over your head, right? And
right.
then the fully contracted would be like if your arm was across your body down at your hip. And so when I'm in the dip, it's actually a super deep pec stretch, but it's not that great of a tricep stretch. Like you're at 90 degrees for the tricep. I could bring my arm up further on a press down. If you want to make it more tricep based, what you should do is put your feet forward and then load your lap and then do your dips. Because now and don't let your chest come forward. Keep your chest super vertical. Now it's gonna be super tricep based. It's still gonna hit pec,
Okay.
but it's not gonna be as much.
Right.
But
And that's kind of
chair
like
dips will
yeah.
smoke your triceps out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to work like a dip for triceps. You want to work off a bench for working more of that like front delt. Chest. You want to get on the
Feet
two
so
bar.
feet back is gonna on a bar will be more chest, and then feet forward will be more tricep. Pretty
Okay,
much, yeah.
sick. I love that. Um,
We're gonna just build you a strength conditioning program right now. It's like, all right,
yeah, that's where that's what I really wanted to do
if
is
you're a
like get
tricep
you
guy, we
on
should make you do
here.
JM press. Have you ever done those?
No, what is a JM
So you know
press?
what a safety squat bar is?
Safety squat
The
bar?
bar with the
No,
big pad on it.
no.
You come to my office. I have one. We'll just set it up for you. I have a full gym. So what we'll do, you take off the handles on the safety squat bar. So you've got this bar that has a big pad, so you can squat without your hands. It's cool. So it self balances. So the JM press, you come down so the pad touches. So it's like a quarter of a press, and then you do almost like a skull crusher to your chin, and then back up in a full press.
Ooh.
The wildest thing. So
All right.
this guy my buddy used to train with in Iowa, Luke. He did that with like 500 pounds. Yeah.
What?
And then I was like, I don't know how much I could do. I did like 198, and I was like, oh my god, that is so hard.
Well, those Iowa guys, like I've met two people in my life that were what I now consider like the strongest people I've ever personally like interacted with,
Mhm.
and they were both from Iowa, and I mean
Corn
just
fed.
stupid
Yeah.
country strong, just moving hogs and eating corn.
Well, in
Like
wrestling,
that's
it's so big out
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah,
I went to
exactly.
chiropractic school in Davenport, Iowa.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, and there was a
heck
powerlifting gym
yeah,
there that just had some mutants. So yeah,
yeah.
Lucas. I think
It's
his last name's Nall. You just send me the people I talked about, and I'll make sure I send you links. But yeah, he's like a 900 plus squatter, like 600 plus bencher. But yeah, that when some of these videos you see these guys doing, you're just like, what? But the JM press came from Westside. So JM was
okay.
one of the guys that used to train at Westside. So he found that doing that weird variation of like a skull crusher, but it was with the safety squat bar, it hits your triceps in a way that isn't so painful on the elbow, and it's not really shoulder dependent because that pad is rolling. So it's an arc, and then you still
Huh.
have to press it at the top.
Right. All right. We're gonna make some time for me to come over to the gym
Yeah,
and
man.
we're gonna work out.
I've got
I'm
like
into
two
it.
thousand pounds in weights, so I think we should be okay.
Yeah, that's more than enough. I just got back to I just got back to the 1,000 pound club,
Oh,
and like
nice.
I'm really happy about it. Like, all right, I'm 44 years old, 1,000 pound club now. You know, now I got to figure out what the next like really psycho thing is.
The 1,250
Uh,
pound club.
the what?
The 1,250 pound club.
1250.
Yeah,
1250 is the next one.
yeah.
All right, I'm into that. All right, we've cruised past an hour, and I think you and I are probably able to talk for another like 2 or 3 hours about different things.
Mm.
But for the sake of our audience, I want to know, where can people find your information about you? Like if they want to come talk to you and train with you, we got some people that want to get their bodies fixed.
Mhm.
Where can we find you?
My Instagram's the barbell Cairo. So make sure you put in the. There is a barbell Cairo. Some people go to his page by accident, and then my website is Strong Life Cairo. So I'm over in Tigard, just off 72nd and like 217 I-5. It's kind of a nice little spot.
Yeah, I shoot. That's where I go. Like you're right. You're right near my the archery shop that I go to, Archers of Feld.
Oh, nice.
Uh, yeah, they're just over there as well. All right, I'm going to include both those in our show notes
Mhm.
as well as the Instagram posts that we do. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to sit down and share your story and your business. And I look forward to sending some people over to you, and as well as for myself to get over there and come get some work in.
Yeah, sorry we didn't talk too much about like actual chiropractic.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the things. Like, this is always, follow up is like, we can get back to that. I like to talk to getting the information we can
Yeah.
to start, and we'll come back and we'll circle back here in 6 months, and we'll be like, okay, well, let's get back to like the real depth of what we're
Yeah,
trying to
well,
get.
I mean, the depth of it for me is really like getting people to move. So the adjustment, the scraping, all that stuff's just a tool to get them to be able to move confidently. And then as soon as you can move confidently, we kind of get rid of the chiropractic side and just train. So I appreciate you having me on. We got to talk about what I enjoy talking about. So it's perfect for me.
Right on, my dude. Have a great afternoon, and I will talk to you here soon.
All right.